1. Many rotations ago, I made a stupid decision and voted for the wrong saucer section to boldly go on my lifelong journey through undiscovered countries. AKA I was young, stupid, and desperate, so I got me the wrong girlfriend. That girl was an egotistic, narcissist, naive, stupid egomaniac, and I was a stupid, desperate, overweight young man with a massive sex drive and no way to go. I was so stupid that even long after I had discovered her character flaws, I still was with her and even moved in together. And I love Jell-O, she doesn't. That's why I either had my grandma make some for me when I visited her without the annoying background noise with tits and feet, or I made some, secretly, and stored it way back in the fridge. So I had, in secrecy, made a huge batch, about 2 liters of sweet woodruff Jell-O, and had it hidden successfully way back in the top shelf of the fridge. We had decided to watch some movies and make a chill evening. We sat down, started the movie, and chilled, until I remembered what was hiding in the back of the fridge waiting for me to be devoured. I got up, walked into the kitchen, got the bowl from the fridge, a spoon, and walked back to the living room. The moment I spotted her, I asked, "Want some?" I got the usual reply, "Nah, I hate that stuff." Fine. I sat down and started shoveling the sweet ambrosia in my mouth. Oh boy, what a heavenly taste. After about a quarter of the Jell-O gone, she asked me in quite an annoyed cadence, "Are you gonna gobble everything on your own? Give me some." "I think you hate Jell-O." "I want some." Fine. So I went back to the kitchen, got a second spoon and another bowl, about half the size of my bowl, and walked back to the couch, where I put some in her bowl. "More, I want half of your bowl." Okay. She insisted on getting exactly half and made sure I didn't get an ounce more than she got. After a while, we both finished our bowls. I made another big mistake. I asked, "Please explain to me why you insisted on getting half of my Jell-O. I had the impression you hate Jell-O." "I still hate it." "So why did you eat half of it?" Okay, the Jeopardy moment. What do you think she replied? "I didn't want you to have it all for you alone." 2. This is a long story, and it started quite a few years ago. I'm an instructor at a small college. I teach artsy vocational classes and only have an MFA, and my school really favors more academic PhDs. This was all told to me when I was hired, but the dean at the time was incredibly kind about this and gave me a secret boost in pay to make up for the lack of favor. She told me that even though I would never be promoted, my area of expertise was valued, and as long as I stayed in my lane, I was very welcome. So before I ever got tenure, I worked for a few years and developed a slate of very popular classes that filled every semester. I was very happy and grateful to have the job. Titles mean nothing to me. And I was just happy to be successful at a job I loved that helped people. I also learned very quickly never to step on the toes of more senior faculty. I stayed in my lane. Then a woman was hired in another subgroup of my department. I never met her, nor was I involved in her hiring. She had nothing to do with me, but she does have a PhD. Then, before I ever met her, I saw on her social media that she announced that she would soon be teaching all my classes, and she was delighted to be doing that. I was shocked because I went through a rigorous hiring process, and I am exponentially qualified to teach in my area. She has no publications in my area, and her degrees are only vaguely related to my area. I figured my chair would put her in her place, but I was wrong. Instead, I was called into the chair's office and told, "She's very interested in what you do and wants to help you." I stared my chair down. "And you hired her to fly." "That doesn't have anything to do with me." "Her degree is multidisciplinary, and she is more than qualified." This shocked me because it was way out of protocol. There was a pecking order, one that I had followed. I also realized very quickly that if I gave in, I would have no job. I would be shunted off to teach stuff I wasn't qualified to teach. This gave me the courage to resist. And resist I did. Multiple meetings with my chair followed, in which I was painted with the difficult and unsupportive. Honestly, if she had done one shred of business teaching in my area, I probably would have succumbed to the pressure. But she was not qualified, either by degree, experience, or publications. That made me mad. Meanwhile, an older colleague who had been terrible to me and made me cry a few times pulled me aside one day. Apparently, she had grown to respect that I wasn't letting the chair bully me. She told me to never verbalize permission for the entitled woman to take over my classes. Apparently, the rules of the school were and are that I was the one who decided who could sub for me or take over for me. I held firm. I was bullied over and over again. One time, my chair very nearly physically threatened me and said, "Why can't you just say it?" Chair had no idea I had been tipped off why I needed to say it. I was told by another colleague that the entitled woman is bored with her area and she doesn't like what she got a degree in, and only did that area because it's easier to get hired. I said her life choices weren't my problem and stood firm. My chair threatened not to support my tenure, but I actually had a bulletproof application. Chair couldn't do anything. Shunned by many colleagues, some of whom I thought were friends, I was called angry and unreasonable on a good day, a bitch on the worst. One day, this sweet, dear lady who had been responsible for hiring entitled woman actually cried an apology, saying she was sickened by what was happening to me. Entitled woman had been their last choice and the only person they could get. This sweet, lovely woman wailed that entitled woman was obnoxious and terrible. She also said that many people in the department supported me, but were scared of the chair. She said I should just keep resisting. At least twice a week, I was at school events, and when I told the person, both times high-up administrators, what I did and taught, they said, "Oh, I thought entitled woman did that." I had to correct them. So I got tenure and stood firm. Meanwhile, a former student who was now teaching at a community college nearby told me entitled woman was teaching there. He provided me with her bio from their website. Her listed credentials were my credentials. Luckily, that didn't last long. She didn't have the expertise, so I guess the gig just fizzled. One thing I never did was meet with her. I was asked to, so we could hash things out, and I said repeatedly that there was nothing to hash. I was happy in my job, and my job wasn't her job. I was always polite and professional if I had to deal with her, but I always avoided any potential traps. They wanted my verbal permission. I wouldn't give it. Finally, the chair stepped down. The next chair initially sided with the majority because he didn't know me very well, but then got to know me and was fair. Eventually, entitled woman stopped trying to do my job. She pushed her way into another area, and now she steers clear of mine. It really did take about 10 years to wear her down. So there was no real dramatic ending. I just held firm, and eventually she gave up. The reason I am sharing is recently another colleague told me that he always thought entitled woman in chair were having an affair. And this is why everything happened. Maybe I am naive, but the thought never crossed my mind. Plus, she is actually not attractive at all, so I couldn't picture it. Anyway, over the years, whenever she has done anything terrible or stupid, my colleagues will always share it with me. Still, I actually have little ill will left for her. I won most of the battles and the war, and that's good enough. I still love my job and my students, and I'm glad I fought for it. They say academia is the Game of Thrones without the beheadings. Fair, I think. 3. Some years ago, I dated a girl. The relationship was bad. She was very controlling and abusive. It ended up really bad, and we broke up. I kept going on with my life, and after some years I got a decent job, enough to solve all of my needs, have a comfortable life, and make some savings. The thing is, a couple months after getting my job, my ex contacted me. She, at first, asked me to talk. I believed that she may want to reconnect or something, but she showed up with a 5-year-old child, claiming he was my son and demanding child support. I didn't believe her, but the child's age matched the time we cut contact. I got advice from a lawyer, a friend of mine. To try to solve this out of court, I offered to take responsibility, pay all the costs, and be an active part of the kid's life, but only after a DNA test for obvious reasons. Everyone was okay with this except for my ex. She acted offended and demanded to just give me the money I deserve. She used all the excuses she could, even contacted my family and told them I was trying to avoid taking responsibility for her child. When she ran out of excuses and the DNA test was finally done, surprise, I'm not the father. She was so mad with the results and cried about the money, saying it was unfair and she deserved it. But she didn't accomplish anything. Moving on to the last week, there was a little party at my parents' house. My brother, a friend, and I were talking. My brother started a joke about the situation with my ex. My friend and I started a joke about it too. Some of our comments were a little dark and bad, but we were far away from the rest of the people. Literally, we were on the opposite side of the house, and nobody else could hear us. At least that was what we thought. We were laughing like crazies when my sister appeared very angry and pushed me against the wall. She was spying on us and heard our conversation, and she'd gotten really mad. She started to yell at us about how horrible we were for mocking a poor woman. A few hours later, the party ended. She asked me to go to the kitchen with our parents and started to say how awful I was for what she'd overheard us say. Apparently, my ex had been in contact with her and she believed her version, and this was her way of having an intervention. My brother and I were like, "Are you serious?" When she started to say how I forced my ex to be a single mother. Pretty sure I didn't force her to sleep with somebody else while we were dating, but okay. She said that I have a moral obligation to help her. My dad only said that maybe we were being too cruel making jokes about her, but that I wasn't responsible for that kid. My mom then surprised all of us when she said, "Even if the kid's not yours, you're making more than enough money to support the child. You should have helped her." Since then, I've been receiving texts. My dad and brother are on my side, saying I'm not responsible for her. My sister is telling me how horrible I am for ruining their lives. It's entirely possible my sister's the one that told her I was making some money now. My mom only said, "It's your decision and I respect it. I'm just very disappointed that you ended up being so selfish for not taking care of a cheating ex's child. I'm aware that she doesn't deserve the money, and I'm not planning to give her any. But the constant harassment of my sister trying to guilt me, it's just exhausting." 4. Recently, I was talking with some coworkers about old jobs we had, and I remembered this gem. I remember this story vividly because it was so absurd. January 1st, 2017. I was 23 at the time, in the middle of my shift at the local grocery store as a checkout clerk, or the official term of front-end associate. I was just chatting with customers as I rang up their chips and sodas and rotisserie chickens, like a usual day, when one of the stalkers ran up behind me and yelled, "How busy is everyone?" Confused, I simply gestured to my line of people, but he had our attention since he never did anything like that. My manager said, "Why do you ask? Everything okay?" "Once you're all finished with your current customers, everyone needs to leave. There's a fire in the back." Immediately, all who were not being checked out abandoned their carts and left the building, except for Gerald. Gerald was the next person in my line, and he was going to be served. The customer before him paid, since that was where I was with his transaction when the stalker told us about the fire. And I grabbed my jacket from under the counter so I could evacuate with everyone else. Gerald, however, was not having it.
"You will not leave until you have rung up my groceries."
Now, Gerald was very old, mid-70s, early 80s, somewhere around there. He was very tall and lanky, wearing a tan V-neck sweater. I don't know why I remember that, but I do. He wore black, thick-rimmed glasses, and would have generally been very non-threatening to anyone else. "Sir, there's a fire. We have to get out of here for both of our safeties. The door is over there. Let's hurry." However, it seemed that today was not Gerald's day, and I was in the wrong person's way at the wrong time.
"I don't care. I need these items. Ring them up now."
He really was threatening me to ring up his 7 items while smoke was filling the aisles. Since it was 7 items, no manager was in sight, and I wasn't really feeling like getting a black eye in addition to having my workplace burn. I quickly rung him up, all the while he's thanking me quite condescendingly. I was paying him no mind since I knew the tone. Finally, my manager showed back up to make sure everyone had left. I ran over to her. "Manager, please help me. This guy won't let me leave." What do you mean, won't let you leave? Did you tell him about the fire?" "He said he doesn't care." "Oh my God. Absolutely not. OP, you go outside with everyone else and wait for the firefighters. I'll take care of this." I went to grab my things again, and while I was leaving, I could hear them both yelling.
"Where's she going? She has to finish."
"Sir, there is a fire. A fire! You have to leave."
"No, I still have to pay."
"You have got to be kidding me. I'm a manager. You can have it. It's free. Just get out of here."
"This is terrible customer service. I'm never coming back."
I met up with the rest of the staff in the parking lot, and they asked what took me so long, so of course I told them. My manager came out and confirmed the story. We never did see Gerald again. About the fire, it was actually pretty contained on its own. It was in a closed-off area opposite the bathrooms and was surrounded by tile walls that blocked the food from the sparks. We were able to get back to work after it was put out, starting with putting back all the abandoned carts of food. As for what caused it, it seemed like the chickens used to make the rotisserie chickens weren't stored properly, so they started to thaw prematurely. The water in chicken juice leaked through the tile floor and sparked an electrical fire. The best part was that when we learned this, we were still in the parking lot. I looked over to the parking lot to the side of the building and saw at least 50 turkey buzzards in the trees. I shook a coworker while laughing hysterically. "I can smell them." Everyone else joined in on the hysterical laughing. It was truly the weirdest way to start the year. 5. This story belongs to my beautiful wife, but since it's from many decades ago, from a time before we knew each other, we will call her Classy Flight Attendant. But first, the usual business. I don't like perpetuating the stereotype of black males being drug dealers and criminals. From the late Wesley Snipes. He's not dead, he's just never on time. Classy Flight Attendant is at this time one of the top-tier flight attendants for her country's national airline. She frequently flies from her home airport in South America to New York, Miami, Dallas, Fort Worth, and other destinations in the United States. They also have a number of flights between various countries and ports of call in South America, as well as flights to Europe. She notes a thin, handsome man on several of her flights between various ports of call. He is always very well-spoken and polite. He always wears a 3-piece suit and never seems to sweat. His hair is very well coiffed and perfectly trimmed. He smells great. All the time. Every time. He is also very charming. She frequently chats with him in the course of her job. It is always pleasant and memorable. This is the only reason that she accepts when he invites her for a drink after a flight. He is a little old for her, but Why not see what he has in mind? She says when and where, and he is there before she arrives. She orders an Italian soda. He's having something a bit stronger, but notes her choice. They chat. Pleasantries at first, as is the proper form. He has her laughing. He decides it's time to close the deal. I wager you wonder why I have invited you to come speak with me outside of the airplane. It is certain I have, she says. You know, I travel a fair amount. I have clients who have interests that I serve with my travels. There are certain things that they need done that I help make happen. But there are some things that I cannot accomplish on my own. What I am offering you is a business agreement, where you help me with some of my concerns and I pay you very well for the help. Now, classy flight attendant is no fool. She is starting to get suspicious of where this will go. But she will give him enough rope to show what it is before she responds. What kind of help do you have in mind? Members of flight crews enter every country. They visit unsuspected. They check your passport and visa. They never check your luggage. So smuggling. Something small. Smuggling is such a loaded word. Expediting delivery would be more the idea. Delivery of what? He takes a long, slow sip of his drink while watching her closely. She is still smiling and pleasant. No indication of rejection or resistance. He decides he dares proceed. Certain chemical compounds that are not normally allowed to pass customs. Drugs, just say what it is. You want me to mule drugs over national boundaries for you. Said a bit harshly, but in jest, yes. And I am prepared to pay you several times your current monthly salary for successful deliveries. Okay, maybe we should meet first. Do you know who I am? You are the classy flight attendant. Yes, do you know who my father is? I'm sorry, miss, I do not. Classy flight attendant repeats her last name slowly and clearly. Realization starts to spread across the dapper man's face. Surely not his daughter. She smiles back. Oh. Classy flight attendant. So, if you know anything, you know that I do not need or want your money. You should also know that we are at cross purposes. I am completely opposed to what you're involved in. If I learn that any of my co-workers are working with you, I will make sure they get investigated. Every flight. If I see you on any of my flights, I will make sure you get the full examination. But let me warn you one further. If any of my nieces or nephews ever get messed up on any of your junk, and I can trace it back to you, I will hunt you down myself, and I will kill you. Are we clear? Yes, miss. Crystal. And with that, they both stand up and walk away in different directions. She does not see him as much going forward. When she does, he makes serious efforts to hide from her. She suspects some of her co-workers are working with him, but she never catches them in the act or can prove it. All of her nieces and nephews are grown up now. None of them have ever used anything stronger than alcohol. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 80. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do boop the like button and share the video with friends and family. And thank you very much, I greatly appreciate it. Okay, let's see. No idea what day this is going up. It doesn't really matter, does it? It's up, and that's all that matters. Alright. Let's see, I don't think there's any... No special shout-outs today. I think the next one is on Monday. I think there's one Monday and one on Tuesday. So let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... What is something that is not a thing in food that you consider a thing? I'll explain what I mean. Something like a Jaffa cake is a cake. It's in the title, but a lot of people used to argue that it was a biscuit. They actually proved it was a cake for tax reasons, but they proved it. I would consider an apple crumble to be a type of pie. I think that's reasonable, even though it has a crumble instead of actually a pie crust. A quiche is a type of pie, and so on and so on. And that's just talking about foods I enjoy. I'm sure there's others out there I could think of that don't qualify, but let me know some of the ones that pop into your head. Please leave your answer in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time. I've been recording for hours, my throat's a little rough. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.